Welcome to New York Got Game.
Welcome back to another edition of New York Got Game. Dexter, Henry, Bryan, Fonseca here with you. Off-season rolling along. We are very close to preseason. We talked about it last week with Stephen Bondi. We are almost right here, which is crazy. It's just crazy. I was talking, Bryan, with our good friend CP the Franchise from Knicks Fan TV. I was just talking with him earlier today, and we're just like, man, this crept upon us. We crept upon us, and the grind is about to be real in terms of Knicks content. But what we're going to do today, we talked to you about how the fact we're going to do some player breakdowns. But what we want to talk to you today is about some of the Knicks role players, because the star players get a lot of attention. We're going to talk about the star players, but some of the role players, and we wanted to look at the role players who the Knicks signed to the roster this offseason. And the one was Jordan Clarkson, but today we're going to focus on Guerschon Yabusele. And Bryan, for people who don't know, is the absolute perfect person to speak to about this, because I mean this lovingly. Bryan is an international basketball junkie. As much as anybody, I watch a lot of basketball, and I'll be honest, I know some of y'all out there weren't watching EuroBasket. I was, not as much as Bryan, but I was. So I understand it. I've watched a little bit of France. I've seen some of Yabusele and what he's been doing. I know everybody knows about the 36 piece. We'll get into all that. But Bryan is the perfect person, trust me, to talk about this, because nobody probably cares as much as he does. And I'm not saying that judgingly. He just cares very deeply. Bryan, we're going to talk some international basketball.
I think there are some people in Europe who care more, like a lot, so. Like more. But in terms of people not from Europe, as much as I loved my visit to Spain, that I talk about,
yes,
I've watched every game of this tournament, not fully, not like first quarter to fourth quarter, although there's a bunch of those, but I've seen at least parts of every game. Even Bosnia, Estonia, Montenegro, like
dedication, man.
We're
dedication.
Out. Listen, and to the point where like this tournament's going to be over, and I'm going to be like, damn, I'm basketballed out, but we still got WNBA playoffs, baby.
Hey,
WNBA playoffs in a few days.
Basketball never stops, man. Never stops at all. So let's talk about Yabusele and what we saw from him at EuroBasket, because it's very interesting. And we're also going to do this in the context of how he can fit in with this Knicks team, because everybody's going to pull out to that 36 piece that he had against Poland, right? And we'll get to that specifically. But Bryan, it didn't start off amazingly well for Yabusele in EuroBasket, right? Like, you look at the finishing numbers and they're fine, but this was a slow start for him in EuroBasket. So I guess what I'd love to hear from you is, because you watched almost all these games, how did he go from where he started in EuroBasket to where you saw him at the end? And did you see any growth in his game that you think can help with the Knicks this coming season?
The interesting thing is that he's one of the centerpieces here. And I feel like in watching these tournaments, you have to be careful because, and I feel this way actually about college prospects too. Sometimes the best guy doesn't necessarily work out because they have to be the best guy at the next level. With Guerschon Yabusele, why he stood out in the Olympics to get back into the NBA is because he starred in his role. And here, he wasn't like the star, but he was the captain of this French national team that ultimately kind of underperformed. But Alex Sarr got hurt. And for people who don't know, should mention a couple different things just for the purposes of background as it relates to the teams, this French national team in particular. So you can see what Guerschon Yabusele was working with. Now, as mentioned, Guerschon Yabusele was the captain of the French national team, which has not always been the case. Evan Fournier has like sort of been a leader on this team. Nando De Colo has been a leader on this team, but like they didn't have a lot of their guys.
Nicolas Batum, who just retired from international basketball.
Nicolas Batum, yes. Rudy Gobert wasn't on the roster. Victor Wembanyama, obviously coming back from the blood clot situation. I'm sure he would have been playing if he were healthy, because he seems like one of these dudes who wants to compete and win everything, which, that'll be a conversation for the World Cup in a couple of years. But the team had, we'll see how many familiar names there are to some people, but you may remember Timothé Luwawu-Cabarrot, who played with the Brooklyn Nets for a stint, for example. Isaiah Cordonier, who actually was think his rights were with the Nets for a period of time, also with the Hawks, but he plays overseas in Europe. The three names rather that stood out probably to NBA fans, other than Guerschon Yabusele, would be Bilal Coulibaly from the Washington Wizards, Alex Sarr also from the Washington Wizards, and Zach Reshape from the Atlanta Hawks, #1 overall pick a year ago. So a younger team that he was the captain of, a team that I thought was overvalued just from a prediction standpoint, a betting standpoint. They had like the third or fourth shortest odds to win the entire tournament. And I was like, I don't think this team is that good necessarily. But to talk about Yabusele specifically, like it gives you an idea. He was also the third oldest guy on the roster, but the leader of this team. Now, in terms of his actual play, you also have to look at it game by game. And like a lot of guys on this team were inconsistent. Coulibaly was inconsistent. Reshape was inconsistent. It was the first EuroBasket for them. Alex Sarr too, and then he got hurt and he was out, and that was pretty significant to their front court. But Yabusele didn't shoot the ball well the first few games. He did get after it on the glass against Slovenian national team, but like if you look at the very first game against Belgium, for example, he gets his 11 points. He's only shooting 1 for 7. He was, though, and this is something I think you can see this in the NBA. He was 1 for 7 shooting, but he finished with 11 points because he got 10 free throws and made 9 of them. And it's like, okay, you could actually score at multiple levels when you have to be, quote unquote, the guy in some stretches. He didn't have the most shots on his team, but you get the idea. The 36-point game happens against Poland, which was in group play, which was an important game for them, because if not for that, like France was in the danger zone.
They were in danger of not advancing to the knockaround, right?
Yeah, because there was a loss prior to that. So he gets 36 points, 12 of 20 shooting, 6 of 12 from 3. It didn't start off as like a 3-point barrage, and it became that because he just kept making them. And by the way, he also had 6 rebounds in that contest. And then he played better toward the end of the tournament, where the last group play game against Iceland, they destroy Iceland. Iceland's not very good. They're one of the weaker teams in the tournament. He gets his 10 on 4-6 shooting. And then against Georgia in the round of 16, which was a kind of an upset, although Georgia's pretty good. And, you know, they nearly stole a quarterfinal. He had 12 points, 4 of 10 shooting, only 1 of 7 for 3. So in totality, you're looking at 14 points a game, shot 46% from the field, up and down. But, you know, 2 games really where he shot better than 40%. And then from 3, he shot 31%. But I think if I'm looking at how this can carry over for the Knicks, just to wrap this point up, this long ass point up, I'm talking too much, quite frankly. But with Yabusele, I think the main thing is he had to play a leadership role, which he's probably only done that overseas. You know, and maybe with the French national team a little bit last year, but they still had Fournier, Batum, Gobert. So, and that matters. That matters.
And I want us to come back to the leadership point in a second, because I'm glad that was one of your takeaways from that. But when I looked at that Poland game, Bryan, in particular, right, because that is going to be the sort of statistical outlier for him in that and playing this tournament. In that game, he shot the ball obviously well, 50% from downtown. You love that. But I thought he showcased the versatility that he could have for the Knicks, right? His ability to drive. You also even talked about another game where he struggled with his shot and was able to get to the line. And this kind of versatility for somebody that could play as a smaller big for the Knicks is something they've been missing. Do you think his versatility fits well into this Knicks roster? Also, when you look at the fact that, okay, you could play him with a Karl-Anthony Towns, you could play him with a Mitchell Robinson. How much do you like his versatility and what you saw from him in terms of his game being versatile with the driving, the shooting at EuroBasket?
Love it on offense. We'll see on defense.
Right. I could say, yeah. I had a feeling you might say that. Right.
Just because like we don't know, and with him and Towns, I feel like those lineups could be risky in terms of
scary hours.
Yeah, like, you know, we'll see. I also think I feel this way about probably too many players who come over. I think there's room from a playmaking perspective there. Like, I'm intrigued at what Mike Brown can do if he does stagger Karl-Anthony Towns and Guerschon Yabusele for like an offensive punch, and maybe it's a 5-minute stint where it's like, hey, maybe they have like OG Anunoby out there and it's a kind of big lineup, and you have Mikal Bridges out there too just for some defense. And maybe there's some playmaking. Like, I wonder if you're rotating, like we've talked about, can you use Karl Anthony Towns at the free throw line? And not like Nikola Jokic exactly, but he can make that pass to cutters quickly from the free throw line down. Yabusele could be one of the cutters. Can you also reverse it? Like, is Yabusele, does he have enough playmaking juice to where he can find a Mikal Bridges who's cutting in that way? Like, I just come away from this, and I came away from even his Sixers season, and why we liked Yabusele so much to begin with for the Knicks was I feel like he could just be really complimentary to these guys coming off the bench, to some of the starters as well in spurts. He probably will have to start some games because of injuries and guys being shorthanded, but
Right.
you know, he's not somebody who's like he's not like a virtuoso passer. But I do wonder if Mike Brown like is intrigued by that skill set at all. And overseas, he's never been somebody who's gotten a ton of assists. But he has a good feel for the game, and one that has progressed over the years as he's played in better competition, as he's played for like Madrid, for example. So I wonder if that's something that they could use. And then you mentioned the scoring just from different dimensions. I mean, the 3-point shooting is, I think, better than people realize, or
Especially on
I've
above the break
expected.
threes, man. Especially on above the break threes. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's going to be a weapon for them. And that's going to be something where like the Knicks can create those looks for him. And then also the driving. The one of the signature moments of the Olympics last year was him dunking on LeBron James.
Yeah.
You know, like there's an athleticism there. And this is ultimately somebody who's, I don't know, going to play 20, 18 minutes a game, 15 minutes a game, 14, like 22. It depends. The NBA, you don't really know because it's all injury dependent. But
Right.
I think, like, can he be somebody who is kind of vocal, given that, you know, he doesn't have a ton of NBA experience, but he's 29 years old and he's won at a whole bunch of different levels. Getting a silver medal at the Olympics isn't nothing. Winning multiple championships overseas isn't nothing. And he proved to be a good player on a bad Philadelphia team last year, but wasn't a looter in a riot. It felt like he really, really mattered more than I thought he would. So there's room there for him to complement the other guys. And I think you even see that on the French national team, because there are quotes of players joking like, yo, we want him to shoot more, like go be the guy a little bit. The Knicks is not gonna, the Knicks is never gonna.
That's not gonna happen. Right. That's not gonna happen with the Knicks. And I think the word, using the word compliment, was very interesting, right? Because when I think about him and why I think we liked him, we talked about this a lot at the top of free agency, you know, and I was thinking about compliment was such a good word, but because of his versatility, because that's the word I used the last thing we were just talking about, I wonder, because of that versatility, is he sort of like that front court puzzle solver for the Knicks, right? Because you can use him against different lineups, and then it can also allow Karl Anthony Towns and Mitchell Robinson to maybe play a little bit more to their strengths or specialized roles, right? Depending on how you use them, or just the versatility it can give the team in terms of maybe going smaller with a second unit, or you want to go at times to stretch things out a little bit more. You could play true 5 out with him. Now, I'm with you. The defense, I don't know. You might have some concerns about that, but he could be this front court puzzle solver because he's very unique in a way of a player the Knicks haven't had in quite some time in the front court. I think the comp people will go to, looking at last year's roster, Bryan, is Precious Achiuwa, but he's more skilled than Precious Achiuwa. And I think that solves some, that's why I'm calling it a front court puzzle solver. It solves some issues that they can have, or you can play differently with different matchups. And that's just something I like a lot.
Like, it's interesting because Precious Achiuwa, I feel like, is and always kind of has been just an undersized center. You want him to be a center. He's just 6'8", 6'9". So it's tough. And he's not like an exceptional rebounder. And he's not like an exceptional enough shooter to where you can comfortably play him at the 4 in today's NBA, which is why he doesn't have a team right now. And that's ultimately what it is. Like, even though in Memphis he shot some threes, he didn't make a ton of them. Like, it wasn't like, it wasn't good spacing, quote unquote. It was spacing, but it wasn't like good spacing. Yabusele made half of his shots virtually from last year were from 3. I don't know if people realize that. So he shot 563 field goals. 274 of them are 3-pointers. It's almost half per game. You're at about 4 threes a game. You're at 8 field goal attempts per game. He shot 50% from the field. I don't know if he'll replicate that. We'll see. 38% from 3. that's what you want him to replicate. So he's kind of like, one, he's definitely I would say not a traditional power forward from the standpoint of, being a bruiser down low exclusively, but almost what you would think of like a stretch four would be in a previous era, because he's a little bigger.
It's a little
You know what I
bigger.
mean?
Right,
Like
right.
his jumper, like if you're playing against him in the park or something, his jumper surprises you, because you expect him to just post up and want to just get buckets down low, and he could do some of that. But also you see him shoot from three and you're like, there's no way. The form looks a little weird. Like, he's like 260, he's strong. Like, nah, no way, because he's shaped like a tight end. And it's like, oh, he actually could make maybe 40% of these.
Yeah,
as demonstrated by that one 6 for 12 performance.
I think the thing for people watching this video that they're going to look at, and if they didn't watch a lot of Yabusele in Philly last year, or they didn't watch EuroBasket and you didn't watch as many games as Bryan did because nobody else did, but they're going to say, don't watch. I'm going to say this for Bryan. EuroBasket is to be respected. There's a lot of good teams. Some of the best teams in the world are playing in EuroBasket. So there's some good comp out there for sure. But somebody might not know that, and they might say, excuse me, hey, Bryan, hey, Dex, this is a fluke. And I don't know about this, and maybe even his 1 year in Philly was fluky. I would say no, Bryan, because I think you got to look at the Olympics, as you mentioned before. You got to look at the Philly stuff you got on tape, the full season, and then you can look at this EuroBasket. But I guess what I will ask is, okay, if somebody says a fluke, what do you think his immediate impact potential is with this Knicks team? Like, when you look at it, what could be a good season for Yabusele where you're like, man, he had an immediate impact on this team?
Let's say he plays, give me a number of minutes. What are we thinking? 18 minutes a game? Or
I think 18. I think 18 is what he'll probably get, about 17, 18 a game. On a high end, maybe he gets 20. If he's rolling the game and the lineup is going well, maybe he gets pushed to 22, 23. But I'd say about that.
If he's shooting really well, I could see that getting into the 20s, because Mike Brown might want to be like, oh, this isn't Trey Lyles. You know what I mean? Like, we gotta actually keep him out here. It also depends if other guys aren't hitting their shots. And if we're talking about Mike Brown being more malleable, going back to that word from earlier in the summer, like, really in the spring, there's room for that. But if we're saying like just baseline 18 minutes a game, I don't think it's all about the numbers necessarily, but you do think he can get to 7-8 points or something along those lines. But it's more so about the percentages. Like, can he shoot 38% from three at least? From the field, I mean, listen, even in Europe, he made 50% last year from the field. He did that in Europe too. And I know it's Europe, but he played at Madrid. He played on a EuroLeague champion. He played
high level basketball, playing second best basketball league in the world, and now he's in the best league in the world.
Yes, exactly. There are, and by the way, there are NBA players who've gone to EuroLeague and it didn't happen for them. You know what I mean? Like, they've had to go to Australia instead. Which is another really good league, but a step down from EuroLeague. But for his career internationally, he makes 51% of his field goal attempts, and he makes 40% of his 3-pointers, 40.6%. That's on a little over 3 attempts per game. EuroBasket, EuroLeague, for like the 3-pointers, I wouldn't say they're as much as the NBA.
Nah, the volume is less, right?
Yeah. But you do have some teams and some games where, yes, this can still be maybe an NBA-like structure, but it ultimately depends. But I wouldn't expect to see it. But still, and making nearly 60% of his twos. So you're looking at somebody who's done that basically. Like, the resume is him doing that all the time. Now, some of the field goal percentage could also be, hey, maybe there are shots you want him to take that he doesn't, that he's a little passive on. But this is where I think the passing could come into play. If he can demonstrate himself to be a better passer than maybe he's shown, then I think he can be. For example, I thought in Philadelphia last year, if I could just pull up the numbers again, he averaged 2 assists per game in just 27 minutes. Now, that's not a ton, but for somebody who didn't have the ball that much, he was out there, but like, you saw who was dribbling the ball most of the season.
Yeah.
And it was a lot of these nameless, faceless guards who were in place of Tyrese Maxey, who was also dealing with an injury. McCain was also out for a lot of it, but they weren't running everything through Yabusele necessarily. But I do think he can be a productive offensive player for the Knicks, and that's really what it comes down to. And can he be survivable on defense? Like, I think the production could be there. I think he can get his 8 points, 4 rebounds, an assist or two, preferably two, and then be decent on the defensive end. Like, I could just see him complementing well, and also like being an energy guy a little bit too. Like, there's some of that as well, because the athleticism is there, because he can poster somebody, because he can finish on a fast break. I already see in my head these, he caps off a fast break where he dunks two hands and the Garden crowd is going crazy, and he's that, like flexing, walking back to the huddle. Like, I see those plays happening potentially, or the big corner three that the Garden loves so much, or above the break three where, oh, they just made 2 shots in a row, it's a 6-0 run, can they get a third straight three, and then all of a sudden they're up 81-72 with 2:23 left in the third quarter. Like, I can see him having those moments for the Knicks.
Yeah, he's the kind of guy, I think, like you said, with the shooting and even like some a great dunk, put back dunk, or yamming on somebody, that he could really have that emotional connection with the fan. I want to go back to something you said at the top, right? Because I thought it was very interesting in looking at Yabusele. And I think when you think of role players and in the role that we expect him to have on this Knicks team, we just talked about the minutes and all that. You talked about his leadership with this French national team and being the captain of the team this year in EuroBasket, right? He's not the best player. You talked about how Rudy Gobert wasn't there. You talked about how Victor Wembanyama wasn't there. So it's all good. Now, they got upset by Georgia, and it was a 9th place finish for France, right, at EuroBasket. But I saw one of his comments after that, and he said, the disappointment is immense. As a captain, I take responsibility. When I hear that from somebody who's not the most talented player on the team, but is a good player, how do you think that leadership translates over to the Knicks? We know who the captain is on this team. We understand it's Jalen Brunson. We get all that. But how do you think this translates to Knicks and having that kind of voice or somebody that takes it seriously? Now, I also want to say, look, when it comes to country and nationality and pride, goes right to heart. For people listening, this taps my chest. It goes right to heart, and I get all that. But I do think there's something. It caught me reading that quote. I'm like, oh man, like, yo, he really cared about that captaincy. He really gave a damn, and I wonder how that translates to the Knicks this year in the locker room, and on that bench, and can he be a leader there? And how do you, from what you've seen from him, do you think his leadership qualities can fit into this Knicks team?
Role players are so important to win championships.
Facts.
So important. So I think it matters because, I mean, all due respect, who do you think has more leadership qualities between Guerschon Yabusele and Mitchell Robinson? Mitchell Robinson strikes me as a different type of dude. You know what I mean? Like, and that's not a good or a bad thing, but there are some people who, like, I don't know if Mitchell Robinson's ever going to be like the captain of a national team or the captain of any team he's on. I think he's a really good player, but it's different. You know what I mean? I think Jalen Brunson, you could see those qualities early on. Like Josh Hart, I think has some of that as well, if we're talking about role players. But you need guys who understand their role, who could play at a high level, but also like just has been in high leverage situations a lot of times. And a lot of people, like, sometimes you just have to look at basketball as basketball and not look at like NBA, EuroLeague. What he did over there is irrelevant. It's like, at the end of the day, the high leverage moments are the high leverage moments.
Right.
And for some, like, and also the Olympics, like, I don't know, to me and to a lot of these dudes, they care about Olympic medals more than they care about NBA titles, especially from overseas, right? That's different. This is more so probably a non-USA thing, because if you show up on Team USA, you're just expected to get a gold medal and that's it. But right. Serbia medals in the World Cup, finishes second in 2023. They have a parade. They had a party after getting the bronze in the 2024 Olympics. Yep. It means something to these guys. Like, France was pissed off about getting silver because they were the hosts. They wanted to win gold. They have that expectation. So Guerschon Yabusele, who might never be a captain again, because the next EuroBasket is in 2029. The World Cup is in 2 years. They'll have more of their better players, and then the Olympics are after that. So, like, this might be a one and done opportunity for him, and he cares about that. By the way, Let's look at what one of his players said about his leadership, Isaiah Cordonier, because I got this quote. This is from before EuroBasket started, but he's like about Guerschon Yabusele. It's funny because I told him go get points. We sometimes need him to be a bit of a selfish guy, be aggressive. Then the floors are open for you. I feel like the coaching staff and we, as players, do go to him to find him in a good rhythm as well. And talked about like he's our leader, he's our captain. We have to follow him. He's doing amazing. He's very vocal, leads by example for us, the new veterans. Even though we're still young, it's about building that same bond of chemistry. Nothing could break that. And Elliot
But
Kobo,
that's impressive words to hear from a guy in his first time as captain on a national team, and like how he took it. Like I shared the quote that I mentioned because I thought that there's things like that. If you have that kind of passion and energy, and we know how it is here in New York, right? That's the kind of thing that can endear you to the fan base. If you bring that same kind of passion and energy here. Yeah, go ahead.
And then Elliot Kobo also had one from after his 36-point performance. Elliot Kobo, if I'm not mistaken, played with the Suns for a couple of years.
Suns for a couple of years,
I'm not sure he had a real photo in NBA 2K ever, but he was definitely on that roster. But he said at the end of the day, he, meaning Guerschon Yabusele, scored 36, but those weren't selfish plays. He took open shots. He was aggressive, and defensively, he was great too. We needed him to compete, and I'm happy for him, like that kind of thing. But I'll say that too about the 36-point performance. Like France could have lost, and we talked about them potentially being in a danger zone. Like it was murky a little bit. They needed him, and he came through. Like that's the moment of that tournament for him. It's that 36-point game, obviously, because it wasn't like, I'm just gonna get buckets and I don't care what anybody else is doing. It's like, the team has nothing going offensively, and the French national team, very famously, they probably haven't had a great offense overseas in a while. Their offense last year in the Olympics wasn't great. Their defense was. And then in the World Cup, their offense was not good at all, and they got embarrassed. Their offense was not great again. But Guerschon Yabusele stepped up when they had to. And look, we could be making too much of this. Some people might be watching, rolling their eyes, being like, we're talking up a role player like he's an MVP candidate. That's not what we're saying. We're just looking at ways, one, that he can be helpful to what I've been calling the most pressurized, like the most pressure the Knicks will see in any season in a long time, or have seen in a long time. And then two, it's September and it's EuroBasket. Like, what do you want?
I think the things you and I, we thought he was a good fit. He was somebody I thought the Knicks should definitely target to sign with the taxpayer mid-level exception. I think the Knicks got incredible value on him to get him on that 2-year deal. I think that, he's not going to be a savior, but as you said earlier, Bryan, role players matter very much in the terms of winning championships. And you also have to win on the margins in today's NBA. He's a player, I think, if we talk about the things that he can do, the shooting, the versatility in his game as a big that the Knicks haven't had in quite some time. His ability to hit above the break threes, where the Knicks struggled a lot last year, particularly Mikal Bridges. He is an excellent above the break three shooter. He and Jordan Clarkson that will help this Knicks offense a lot. And look, man, it just comes down to the bench. The bench was abysmal last year for the Knicks. We all know it. We saw it in the playoffs. I think they averaged 16 points a game. Might have been a little bit less than that off the bench in the playoffs. So I think when you look at the glimpse, and I'll say this to wrap, of what Knicks fans saw, if you didn't watch them in EuroBasket, and we have highlights up through this video, but if you didn't watch him in EuroBasket and you take a look, or you didn't watch him Philly last year, you could see a glimpse of what he could do with the spacing that he could provide, the physicality that Bryan just talked about, that he could provide. And the other thing, I think the hunger and the reason Knicks fans can get behind him, and as we wrap, I'll say he's got a redemption story. This is a guy who was drafted into the league by the Celtics, didn't catch on, had to go back to Europe, played in the second best league in the world, was playing with Real Madrid, did his thing. Now he had a great Olympics last year, had a great season with the Sixers on a bad team, shown you leadership, owned the national disappointment. France expects more of them than their ninth place finish at EuroBasket. But he's showing you that he's like a team first guy. He's got that mentality, team first guy, right? I think there's a way we look back at this, and don't get me wrong, the Jordan Clarkson signing was great, and we'll get into Jordan Clarkson next week too. But there's a way you could look back at the signing and be like, this was one of the best value signings in the NBA this offseason. I really do. Now, the key is, I think, in offense, what I'll say to close, I think one thing to watch would be how Mike Brown can use him. I think you'll see mix and matches of inside, outside play with him, but I'm with Bryan. How does he use him? Maybe in a high post as a passer. Even he's also a very good screen setter. That's something that's very underrated by him. Very, very good screen setter. And how he utilizes an offense to help free other guys up or play in pick and roll situations or just stretch the floor. I think all that is going to be great because that's the thing. It's the V word again. He's versatile. He can do all those things. And I think that's what makes Guerschon Yabusele such a dope signing. So you can get hyped about the 36-point performance, but this is a guy that showed versatility in EuroBasket, showed it last year. And listen, man, I think he's ready for New York. I think the fans are going to love him here. I really do. I think the fans are going to, I think it wouldn't shock me if he's a fan favorite off the bench. I think he's going to be a fan favorite here.
Yeah.
I think there's a lot that he brings to the table. I like the versatility. Let's just hope. The one concern, we said it, just hope he plays good enough defense. Because I know y'all out there, if he doesn't play the good defense, you're going to be like, I don't know. But if he plays a good enough defense within the system, this goes for Jordan Clarkson too. We'll get to that next week. Look, man, he can do his thing. I think he knows his role and can do his thing. I think so.
And when he's with France, they have good defenders, which helps.
It's true.
When he was with the Sixers, I mean, who
was out there?
Right. You know what I mean? Who was going to play defense there? Just my last point. I love the redemption angle that you brought up. I mean, why you and I love covering sports. One of the main reasons is the stories that come from it. And this could potentially be a really good one. It could also, like, there's a world where it doesn't work out and then, you trade them and whatever. But I do think there's an interesting redemption piece here. Ultimately, he's the 9th man on the team, maybe 8th. And in looking at the roster, there's no one else who had this amount of time away and had to come back. Like you mentioned that he was drafted and then had to just basically go overseas and figure it out. And we wrote him off at that point because typically that's what happens. Like you just fade into for what American fans is obscurity, quote unquote, even though you're playing in the second best league in the world now. But like you're not in the NBA anymore, so people just forget. He was almost a lottery pick in 2016. He was 16th overall pick by the Celtics, who at the time, like, they just brought in Jaylen Brown. They got Tatum the next year. Like, they were building what became their eventual, like, long run to contendership. And unfortunately now, it looks like that's coming on. But he was out of the league for several years, went to Spain, France, China, so on. Has other silver medals from EuroBasket previously. And then from the obviously the Olympics, both Olympics, he was on the 2020 team as well. So yeah, the redemption story angle is fun because like this is a guy who, and I'm sure Bondi's gonna hit this like during the season. Like this is something I can't wait for that first sit down. You know what I mean? Where we get some details about how that was and the experience and things of that nature. I want to know. Myself, like just being here, what's that like, and now he can potentially be an integral part in a team that really wants to win a championship, like really wants to at least get to the finals, and their fan base is starved for a championship that hasn't been here for over 50 years. You know what I mean? He can be one of those role players that Knicks fans could really fall in love with. I think if this goes really well, I don't want to overstate it, but I do think it's a good signing that on paper should work out. Ultimately, we'll see. And yeah, I think he complements a lot of guys on this roster. So I think it could be a very, very fun watch for Knicks fans if it goes well.
I 100% agree. It's going to be very interesting. So if you didn't see that, definitely look at him. He's going to help the Knicks. I think versatile on offense, shooting the ball above the break. 3 numbers were fantastic last year. Shoots the ball well from the corner. It's going to help a lot with spacing. It's a little bit more physical. We'll see what the defense is like, but I think this was a good signing for the Knicks. I think it's a good summer for Guerschon Yabusele. I think, you wish France didn't finish in 9th place, but I think him getting that experience as a leader and as a captain is huge for this team. And it could definitely help the Knicks this coming season. That's going to do it for this edition of New York Got Game. That is Bryan Fonseca. He's got some more EuroBasket basketball to watch for sure. I'm going to definitely be locked into
Final Four. Final Four now. Final Four is Friday. Final Four is Friday, and the medal games will be Sunday up against WNBA playoffs and football.
And NFL football.
And baseball.
And baseball. I got to watch a lot of those things, all of those things on Sunday. I have a very busy Sunday coming up, but we'll let you know more about that. So more to come. Season is coming upon us. We'll do something next week on Guerschon Yabusele. Please send us in your questions. If you have anything about the upcoming Knicks season, we want to do another mailbag show before the season starts, so we will do that as well. But we appreciate you rocking with us. Let us know what you think of Guerschon Yabusele. Do you like the signing? Do you like the move or not? Do you think there's too much hype being made off of what he did in EuroBasket? How do you think he will fit in with the Knicks this coming season? Let us know your thoughts as always. He's Bryan Fonseca. I'm Dexter Henry. Until the next time on New York Got Game. Peace.
And thanks for watching New York Got Game. Boom shakalaka.